At this time, we're going to begin the services here in our chapel for Mr. Sheldon B. Perkins. As we begin the service, I would ask if any of you might have a cell phone or any other noise-making device, please turn them off at this time. Officiating the service today will be the Schlachter, Mr. Daniel Kamen.
No one here, with the possible exception of my wife, knows my real name. So it's Schlachter it is. We're going to start, if you have your pamphlet, with the 23rd Psalm. And you can read along if you like. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. V'al malei rachamim, O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Sheldon B. Perkins, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life, be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. Amen. In the back of your pamphlet, we're going to say the mourner's Kaddish. We're just going to do a couple more Jewish prayers. For the mourner's Kaddish, I'd like to say the holiest of Jewish prayers, which is the Shema. You don't have that as part of your pamphlet there, but I will do it. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. Blessed be the name of thy glory of his kingdom forever and ever. The immediate family members, if they want to rise during the mourner's Kaddish, feel free to do so. Or if you're saying Kaddish for anyone, please feel free to rise if you want to. Yiskadal, Viskadash, Shemei Rabbah, Biamad Yivrach Yosei, V'Melech Malchusei, B'chayechunu, V'umechunu, V'chay Dechol Beis Yisrael, B'Galav, V'Zman Karim, V'Imru Amen, Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Mavarach, Li'alam Alamaya, Yisbarak, V'Ishtabas, V'Yispar, V'Yisroman, V'Yisnasei, V'Yisadar, V'Yisalah, V'Yisalah, Shmei Kedusha, Baruchu, Li'olam Min Kol Berchasa, V'Shivasa, Tush Berchasa, V'Nechamasa, Darmimam, B'Yamam, V'Imru Amen, Yehei Shlama, Rabbah, Mim Shemaya, V'Chayin Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Imru Amen, Oseh Shalom B'Imru Amam, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Imru Amen. And one more, which is in the back of the pamphlet, is called Hamokam. It says, Hamokam, Yinachem, Etchem, B'toch, Shar, Avalei, Tzion, V'Yerushalayim. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. You may be seated. You know, when I was asked by Bobby, Ellen, and Judy to say a few things about our friend, I thought about, first of all, we started with the opening prayers, and we mentioned God. In fact, I don't know how many caught the fact that perfect was mentioned in one of those prayers. It was a lucky accident or coincidence, I should say. And then I thought about it, in fact, just today, how I was going to open this, and Perfekt loved George Burns. And more than, I mean, in fact, George Burns played God. He played, oh God. And in fact, we recently saw that movie. And there is a quote from George Burns, not me, from George Burns, who what I really think sums it up. And he said, you can't help but getting older, but you don't have to get old. Is that right? You don't, excuse me, you don't have to get, by the way, someone put 4 waters up here. I'm not really sure which one is mine, so I'm going to have to, you won't see me doing this at home. Married 47 years, and I still do this. So anyways, let's get on with it. So couldn't help myself, but I saw 4 waters here. What am I going to do? I'm not a germaphobe. I mean, I just, this. Oh, I'm not. Am I a germaphobe? No.
Oh, my God.
Yes, he is.
Well, I guess majority rules. I'm a germaphobe over here. As Doug said, I am the Schlachter. Did anyone here know my real name? I don't think so. It's, and I've been a friend of Perfekt's and his family for almost 40 years. Doesn't seem like it. 40 years. We met in 1987. That's a while ago. As I would tell Perfekt, that's a long time ago. When I first saw him, I said, "You must have known Madam Butterfly when she was still a caterpillar." He swam in the Dead Sea when it was just sick, so when I met him, I was 30, and he was 50, and when you're 30 and someone's 50, they look a lot older, but as time goes on, you kind of smooth out that gap. It's no longer a difference. Like I said, I'm honored that Judy and Alan and Bobby asked me to say a few words, and I don't know what to say. I'm really honored that he did that, and that they all did that. How many people here have nicknames that were given to them by Shel? I think it'd be easier if I asked who did not have a nickname. Some of them were, well, okay, they were nice names. Some of them I can't say in public. In fact, I had to weed out most of them. When Perfekt gave you a name, it was like Ben Cartwright branding a calf. You were stuck with it. That's it. My name is Daniel, but I've been known as a Schlachter for almost 40 years. He gave everyone nicknames. We have Sebastian over here, Tom. Good friends of mine, Lilier, will be saying a few things. Sebastian, after Sebastian Coe. Is that right? Yeah. The runner, okay, I think so. Mr. Knowledge, Killer, Hero Shapiro, R-Man Flint, and Powerful Peterson. There's some names that are not as complimentary, and I asked Shel about that. He said one time he got a call from someone who was hiring someone in HR. And they said, "We have Frederick Goss over here, and he used you as a business contact. You can vouch for his character." And he said, "I don't know Frederick Goss." He says he knows you. You're at the club. He's there every day. He's there. You run with him all the time. He's there when it's still dark. He's there. Oh, you mean Felony Fred? Oh, you see, he had no idea. That's the guy, But, that's just who he was. I mean, he just gave you nicknames, and I'm not sure, I think Alan or Bobby once told me that he did that just so he could remember your face or something like that. Like I said, some of them weren't complimentary, and I'm not going to tell you how I got my name. But what can you say? I've thought about this, and I made some notes, and I rarely ever read from notes, but my memory isn't what it used to be. It never was. But what can you say about someone you've known for this long and just in a few minutes? All the great times we had at his house, watching the Bears game, running, fishing, hanging out, going out to eat. When I got a call from Alan early in the morning 2 Saturdays ago with the heartbreaking news that his dad had died, my first thought was, did he tell you where he kept his coupon book? Perfekt loved a good deal. There was no question about that. He loved, in fact, I own a very rare picture, and I may even put it on eBay. No, I'm going to keep it. It's even rarer than the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot. It's a picture of Perfekt Pain retail. You're not going to see it again. I asked him, when did your penchant for a good deal finally, when did you know you liked a good deal? He said, well, when I was 5 years old. I said, when you were 5 years old? Yeah, I had a crush, and I couldn't explain. I had a crush on my kindergarten teacher. Why? I failed to see the connection over here. I mean, was she pretty? Well, I don't know if she was pretty, but I noticed in the lunchroom, I liked her. I was attracted to her immediately when I saw that she can get 3 cups of tea from one bag. After that, I knew she was for me. Perfekt loved a good deal, and he liked when everyone else got a good deal, and he knew how to relate to people. And that showed in business because he was very successful in his business. And I used to hear him say to customers, well, some things I won't tell you what he said to customers, but he said, my prices are so low, China buys from me. I don't know if that's the case anymore. I should have wrote this joke last night or something like that instead of, a few weeks ago. We used to kid him that he was cheap. He was not cheap. He was generous, and that's the truth. He was generous with his family and friends. He bought Corvettes. He bought houses. He just bought them for a lot less. That's all. There's a difference between being cheap and being smart, and he was smart. Although someone told me there was a time, I don't know if this is true or not, Alan maybe can vouch for this, or Bobby can, I'm not sure, that he was riding the bus in the city, and he saw a sign on the city bus that said, pay when you get off, which he did 9 hours later when it ran out of gas. I mean, he used to take the subway during rush hour just to have his suit pressed, Okay, I got that one from Henny Youngman, okay. I don't write all my material over here, but I steal from the best. So anyway, when I met Perfekt, I got the best deal. I mean, we were friends for a long time, but I not only became friends with Perfekt all these years, but I got a lot of huge bonuses, namely Alan, Jennifer, Bobby, and Judy. Big, big bonuses. And just to name a few, and I got to know Tyler pretty well. Tyler, by the way, is an amazing artist. I don't know if you ever saw Tyler's work. How many have ever seen his media work? Amazing. Just amazing. And I'm also in awe of Judy, who took excellent care of Perfekt 25 years ago when he was sick. She took really good care of him in just amazing ways, and I believe extended his life for all of us to enjoy, because Judy took really, really good care. And all the way to the very end, she was there every step of the way. And just amazing job. One of the best times I ever had with Perfekt was when we went to the Bears game with Judy's son, Greg, gave us tickets. And I'll tell you the best part, even Greg doesn't know this. The game, well, okay. The Bears were okay. I'm still living off of 1985, okay. Okay, I'm still living off of that. But the best part was Greg also gave us VIP parking tickets. Forget the game. I mean, going past, the whole line and stuff, that was really, really great. And Shel also introduced me to one of his lifelong friends, Lou Ritchie. I don't know if you know who Lou Ritchie is. He, in turn, checked out a lot of my business contacts, and so I wouldn't lose money, and I was always grateful for that. And in return, I introduced Shel to a few people, but my dear friends over here, Tom and Lily, who they've known for about, 31 years or so. Tom will be saying a few things after me, which will be very, very quickly. Don't worry about that. I think that was in '94. I met Perfekt while running, and we all know that Perfekt loved to run, and in fact, he was a great, great runner. And there's a person who introduced me to Perfekt, and he's here right now, and his name is Clark Gable. And where's Clark? I can't see. Where's Clark? Oh, there's Clark right there. Okay. Clark was one of my running buddies in Wheeling, and I saw him running with a guy that looked a little older than us, at least older than me. I don't know about you, Clark, but and in better shape, though, than us. And he was running with him for a while, and I started running with them, and Clark, or Bruce, introduced me to Perfekt, and Perfekt all of a sudden said to me, after running with Clark for 20 minutes, women are stopping the cars on the street just to get a glimpse of Clark. I go, what the heck are you talking about? He says, yeah, they're stopping the street. They want to get pictures with him. They want to meet him. Well, I bought that BS story for a while. And then I started laughing, and I immediately liked Perfekt right after that. And then one time, all three of us were running in the winter. It was 10 degrees below zero, running along the street, winter coats on, and Perfekt said to us other nuts, he said, "Look at those crazy people driving in this." I mean, nothing nutty about running in this, right? Just, you thought it was perfectly normal. What a pleasure it was to tell a joke or sing a song, one of my off-key songs to Perfekt. To him, I was the best comedian, even though my stuff was pretty lame, as you can see right now. It's not the best. Although, like I said, I do steal from the best, though. I used to write these song parodies, of which, at the very end, after everyone else speaks, I'm going to do my last song parody. It's just for Perfekt. I'll save it for the end, for the last one, but I can't do the other ones that I could, but I'm not going to. I'll save that for later. When my wife Sharon and I visited Perfekt and Judy in Port Aransas, Texas, we were treated like royalty, and let me tell you, he was not cheap about anything, but he did love a good deal. And before I knew what he ate, he had to tell me what it cost. I mean, if he has to, he said, okay, look, he says, I went to Juan on Juan's. You ever hear of Juan's? He said, I used to buy the chili, not the chili, the soup with like 8 pieces of shrimp. I used to take the shrimp out, half a loaf of bread, a salad, a drink, and a dessert. Guess what it cost? Anyone else over here would have been $30. All right, $5.99. I don't know how Juan does it, but he did it though. And so anyway, all right, well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty much done right now, except for that poem or that song that I want to sing. But I met Tom. This is Tom, and I met him. He was one of my first patients. Oh, I'm a retired chiropractor, by the way. And he came in to the office with his son Mikey, and Tom he had back pain, really bad back pain. I had this automatic table. And I had very few patients in the day. I had one in my waiting room. This is what I remember about Tom the most. One in my waiting room, and my table goes up. It's a hydraulic table. When I put him down a little bit, all of a sudden, Tom screamed at the top of his lungs. And I heard the door open and close in my waiting room. I lost half my business for that day because of Tom. But anyway, we became friends after that, and I rarely became friends. I think Tom is the only friend that I ever became with, was a patient of mine. And he's a very special person, and as is Lily. And I was running, Tom invited me to the North Shore Club. I think it's in Morton Grove or someplace. And I said, you have to meet this friend of mine. He's the most amazing person you'll ever meet. You'll immediately like him. And they did, and I want Tom and Lily to share a few stories about Perfekt.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Okay.
Great,
Huh?
great job.
Okay.
Hi, everybody, I'm Tom.
And I'm Lily, I'm his wife.
Yeah, should I? All right. It's really good to see everybody show up here today for Shel, or for Perfekt. If I ever called him Shel, if I'd call up and on the phone and pick up, and he'd pick up, I go, "Is this Shel?" All of a sudden I'd hear click. He would just hang up the phone. He'd never acknowledge, his real name. So I would say, okay, I'd call him back and say, hey, buddy, how you doing? And we'd get on with what we had to talk about. But first time I met him. Schlock, I can say Dan, whatever. We met at McDonald's in Vernon Hills, and we were going to go for a run. And I know Peterson Powerful was there, and we, right away he just came up to me and said, "Sebastian," and I was like, "My name's Tom, but okay, I'm Sebastian," and that was it. He wouldn't acknowledge Tom. Tom was never.
He didn't exist.
No, Tom didn't exist.
Yeah.
I did hear him accidentally say Tom a few times, but regardless, a couple stories that I wanted to tell about Perfekt was, the infamous shirt here, as you can see, that Barbara, his sister, made. He's had a couple of those, and if you were lucky enough to get on that. every time you'd walk in the room and he had it on, he'd say,
He'd say, to your name.
He'd say the shirt, you're on the shirt. But early on, I called him one day and he was out seeing the Wind Gypsies. If you guys, I don't know if any of you guys remember, I know Judy does, and you guys were out seeing the Wind Gypsies one night, and I called and left a message, and I said, hey, why didn't you invite me? What's the deal? Why wouldn't you invite me to go with you? And I kind of wanted to make him feel guilty. I'm good at doing that, jabbing him a little bit and razzing him.
It was fun.
I hung up the phone, and the next thing you know, I get this phone call back, and he, like a few hours later, and he left me a message, and he said, Sebastian, he goes, you know what? I thought you were out doing something. I didn't know you were available that night. I didn't know you were going to be able to come out. And he goes, and by the way, you're talking about not being on the A team. He goes, you're on the shirt. He goes, come on, it doesn't get any better than that. You're on the shirt. So I just melted. You just a better friend you couldn't have. My dad used to tell me, don't tell anybody that they're your best friend in front of other friends, but Perfekt was my best friend. He was my best buddy. And, we did everything together. We went out together. We talked about things together that I wouldn't talk about with anybody else. We could open up and share things together. We went on vacations together. Our wives became best friends. Went to Alaska, just went up to Minnesota, just went on a lot of trips, and just went out to dinner all the time and had a great life. With him, we moved up to Barrington, close by, and just enjoyed our lives, and went to the health club every day. I bought him a membership for a few months. I kind of guilted him into that, and I said, if you don't want to, he goes, why did you do this? I said, because I want to hang out with you. I want you to, go to the club and hang out. And I said, if you don't sign up, I'm going to buy you the membership. And then he ends up buying the membership, and, and away we went. And he got to know the coach here, and I think there's few other people that are here from the club. But I'll tell you what, I think about him every day since he's been gone, and it's been a big loss for me. I want to call him all the time. I want to talk to him, and.
Jumps.
Okay.
We have a jumping spider.
Okay. I let him live.
Yeah, right, I don't want to bite you.
Anyhow, that's perfect right there. It's my buddy. Anyhow, I miss him. The last story I wanted to tell was when we were at Panera one time, and he wanted to order one of these bread bowls filled with onion soup, and he ate the onion soup out of the bowl, and it was out of a loaf of bread. I mean, a whole loaf of bread. And then he proceeded to eat the whole loaf of bread afterwards. And I mean, it took him like an hour, but he consumed the whole thing. He was gonna do it, and he did. I mean, No, Judy was not there.
Judy wasn't there.
Judy was not there, and it was amazing. I mean, it was an incredible thing to see. But I'll tell you what, to watch him afterwards, to look at his face was like watching him listen to Judy talk about how much money she spent on landscaping, which was, whenever she talked about spending money, he kind of like drifted off, His eyes were like, just. But the last thing I'll say is, I was so impressed with how hard he worked his whole life to provide for his kids, and how much he loved his family, you know, his sister, and how much he loved you guys, you know, and how much he loved his family, you know, and Judy. I mean, it was really remarkable. So he was so dedicated to you guys. And I know he loved me. You know, he told me last time I saw him, we used to hold hands. I mean, you can think that's weird, but we'd hold hands, and I love your dad. I love your dad.
Honey, it's gonna
I'll never, I don't care. I don't know what else I can say. I mean, how do you follow schlock? I mean, it's kind of a tough act to follow, but it's nice to see all you here today, and I'm honored I was honored to be asked to say a few words about your father, so he'll be dearly missed. What do you?
Yeah, he was a great friend to us. I mean, we did a lot of trips together and a lot of meals. He sure liked to eat. And he never bought a drink, but he was really happy to drink yours. He always got water. He'll put lemon in it. He loved lemon. So, you know, I tried to share with him if I could. No alcohol, but whatever he liked everything, and he liked to eat. So anyway, we took a cruise together, and Danny was there, and Sarah, and he was running with Tom on the deck, and I was painting pictures, you know. So he told everybody I was John Lennon's sister, I guess, and they believed it. People believed it. Not everybody. It's like he had a driver's license with Frank Sinatra's picture. Frank Sinatra was long gone, and he's telling people he's Frank Sinatra. And they believed him there too. I mean, it's like, I guess, you know, he had a lot of fun. Even talking about it afterwards, we just always laughed. He always had some really good stories. You know, he talked about more chicken. I don't know whoever heard that, where more chicken. Somebody might know that story better than I do, but the more chicken, where they ate a restaurant out of all their chicken. They didn't plan on, and two guys, and he wasn't a big guy. I mean, he didn't look like he could eat, but he did. So there was a Pepe, was that the guy's name? Mm-hmm. They gave him this chicken cacciatore, and it was really big. And it's like, the guy said that if he could eat all this, we'd get dessert. And not only did he eat everything, it was a huge portion. It was not a one-person portion. And not only did he eat that chicken cacciatore, but he ate the dessert as well. So not everybody's. It was just fun. He really enjoyed food. So, and we enjoyed him. And he'd always tell the stories about that, which was great entertainment, you know, from then on. So anyway, really, really miss him. He was a wonderful, wonderful person. And he, like Tom said, boy, did he love his family, and he wanted to provide for everybody, and he did. He, you know, pretty much worked till the day he died. And he loved to work. That's another thing. He wasn't doing it for any other reason. He loved it. So anyway. So with that, I say, you know, we love him, so. Thank you, Ellen.
You didn't drink out of my glass, did you? Okay. Well, that's the only thing I'm worried about right now. Oh, anyway. one of Perfekt and Judy's best friends, Ed and Penny, known as, can I say it? Okay, the Alligator Man.
He's on the shirt.
He's on the shirt.
He's on the shirt.
Penny, instead of penny, it's nickel.
Nickel, yes.
You walked on my line.
Oh, okay.
She's worth more than a penny, so her name's Nickel.
Well, I guess we all know why we're here. We're here to celebrate. Every time, is it Shel or is it perfect, or it's never Sheldon? And the thing is, what's in a name? And most of them is his name that he gave you, and it's always been that way. There's a Jewish sect called Kabbalists, and one of their precepts is, by ye name, ye shall be known. And that's, I think, what Shel did with all of us. You got the name. I use the term moniker, which is just another word for nickname. And you got that name because how you looked, what you did, what you said, and it just came to him. The thing was that even my sister, I don't even know if he had met her. Her first name is Toba, and it became Fingerba. And he even had names for animals. And I hope I get it right. An armadillo became Legsy Sweeto. And, it's always the greatest thing. And I never knew who you were, your real name. And it had to be that I was introduced by your moniker, and then I'd introduce my real name, and then I'd ask who you are, and on it would go. Once you had the name, and again, if you were really liked, you were on, I called it the sweatshirt. And every time, like Thomas would say, Shel would pull out his arm and say, alligator. And that was my name, but not my first name. My first name was Wallace Shawn from the Bride, and inconceivable. Well, I never really liked it. I mean, I don't want to be known as Wallace Shawn. He's an actor, for crying out loud. Well, the time came, and again, like you say, we were invited down to Texas often, and there was a place that he took everyone. It was the Aransas National Wildlife Refuge, and I have to describe it. There was a trail. It was like an elevated walkway with gravel, water on one side, wetlands on the other, and then the Gulf beyond. And you went there to see alligators. Well, not being the, let's say, as my wife would say, not the smartest person in the world, we were walking along, and this is how I got my name. There were 4 gators, and there was a nice big one. And at that time, I had a camcorder, and I'm aiming the camcorder at this beautiful gator. And then all of a sudden, I hear Judy, and it's on the tape. I hear, it's got its mouth open. And I'm figuring, what the heck? My gator doesn't have its mouth open. It was the gator behind. It was the smaller one. It was only 10 feet. It had raised its head, opened its jaw, and turned it towards me. And I have Judy on the tape, and her voice is trailing off. Well, that was the first time. The second time with Gator, and same place, I want to take a picture of a gator across the water, the creek. And I'm starting walking towards the gator. All of a sudden, Perfekt And I have to do it. He goes like this. I mean, it steps back and goes crazy. Well, if I would have taken a couple more steps, I would have stepped on the gator. I'm not kidding. It was that close. He saved my life. So Perfekt should be the alligator man and not me. And we met Shel and Judy through these two. My wife worked with Lily, and then we were introduced. The best thing that happened to us in a long, long time. I don't know how long we've been friends with them, but it's been great.
Probably close to 20 years.
20 years. Saturday night was Svengoolie night. And it was bad stuff. But it was always a pleasure to go to their house, sit around, and we either order out, usually ordered out, and watched it. And as it stands now, I still, at this point, I feel that Perfekt, wherever he is, he's giving names to anyone that comes by, and may he do that for eternity. And
Yeah. I always called him Shel. Perfect. But anyway, he was just so generous. You know, we'd go to Port Aransas, and he would never let us pay for them. They were our hosts and hostess, you know. We would have to jump out of the, if we're going someplace, we'd have to jump out of the truck and put our Visa in the, to pay for the gas before they could, before they would know us. So anyway, but he just was a really good eater. And, you know, are you going to finish that? Are you going to finish that? And if we'd bring a doggy box back to their place and put it in the refrigerator, if it didn't get eaten up quickly, are you going to finish that? When are you going to finish that? I'll finish it. He was just so generous and so appreciative of us coming over to see him when he got so sick and he couldn't do too much. You know, he just really was appreciative of it.
this is what friendship is all about.
Barbara, Shel's sister. And you'll have to educate me. What's your nickname?
In a minute,
Okay.
you would call me and give me additions for the church. He'd say, add, so. It's a rule. So, my nickname
Yeah.
is Barbara backwards, a rab.
A rab, okay. Well, without further ado, a rab.
Okay. Shel was my big brother. He took care of me. We were home alone much of the time because our parents worked. And I was very proud of him. He was strong, and whenever he arm wrestled with his boyfriends, he always won. And when they would have races, he always won. He could do, maybe 100 push-ups. He was a door holder at County School. He was a handball champion at County School. He had a very good voice. Even as a little boy, he would get up at family parties and sing and imitate famous singers like Al Jolson and he would imitate gangsters, movie star gangsters like Jimmy Cagney. And he was 10 years old, 5 years older than I, and I was 5 on this particular day. Much of what we did on Saturday and Sunday mornings was watch television. His favorite show was Sky King, I think. Mine was Uncle Mistletoe. Uncle Mistletoe is a little cloth hand puppet. And on this particular morning, after TV, I was sitting in the kitchen, and Shel came in. I was about 5, and he was 10, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm writing a letter to Uncle Mistletoe." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, if I write a letter to Uncle Mistletoe, I can be a member of the Uncle Mistletoe Kindness Club. And if I'm a member of the Uncle Mistletoe Kindness Club, I could sing the Kindness Club song with all the kids, and I get a button." And he said, "You mean you want to be a member of the Kindness Club so you could sing, 'Uncle Mistletoe is glad when you help your mom and dad polish your button, give it a rub. Everyone's proud of the Kindness Club. That's what you want to do, huh?" I said, "Yeah, that's what I want to do." He said, "And you want to sing that song with all the other kids in Chicago who are watching?" I said, "Yeah, that's what I want. And I want a button." He said, "So write the letter. I'll mail it." I said, "Well, I can't write the letter." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because in the letter you have to write a kindness that you've done. And I've never done a kindness, so I don't know what to write." And Shel said, "Well, lie." I said, what do you mean?" He said, "Just make something up. Lie." I said, "Well, like what?" He said, "Well, write Uncle Mistletoe and tell him you helped a blind man cross the street." So I said, "So I did." And a couple of weeks later, I got my button, and I put it on my coat, and I stood real straight, and I walked to school 5 blocks, Gowdy School. Shel was the door holder. And I walked through the door, and he said to his friend, "Hey, that's my little sister. She's a member of Uncle Mistletoe's Kindness Club. See her button."
I never heard that one before. That was a new one on me. That was a new one. When I was up here earlier, I forgot to mention, remember I said that Shel was a better comedian. He had a hit record in the 1960s, I think it was the Mayor Daley album. That was a big hit. And was that in the 60s or 70s? I heard it. It's just amazing. He was really talented. Okay, Bobby, Ellen, Jennifer, and Ananda. And don't use my water, so. Okay, no.
You want us to get out of it and move out of here?
No, I'm staying in the back anyways. So we're sort of going to work collaboratively up here. I have a few notes. I don't know, whoever can speak up here is welcome to speak, obviously. Feel a bit lost without my dad around anymore. He certainly was the rock in my life, obviously, as pretty much I think everybody knows, not only my father, but my boss. And, he was the business owner, and while I was doing, a lot towards the end especially and whatnot, and he told everybody he had turned the business over to me, it was always comforting, to know that the mighty Oz was, behind the curtain there for, whatever I needed. But, obviously a lot of people have covered a lot of things with my dad. Obviously, I grew up with my dad. Naturally, I've known him my whole life. My dad was truly the youngest 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88-year-old you've ever met in your life. He would call himself immature, and he'd call the Schlachter immature as well. But nonetheless, it wasn't really immaturity as much as it was a great sense of humor, more than anything else. My dad was the cool dad growing up. I mean, we all had pretty cool, several of my friends had pretty cool dads. Some of my friends that are here had pretty cool dads as well. But my dad, he had all the sports cars, the Corvette. He had a car called a Bricklin that had the butterfly doors that open up like this. It was like one of the first cars, I think, that had butterfly doors like that. And he was funny. I mean, he was just a really, really funny guy. And people were obviously, really attracted to that. And, I remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, my memory is terrible, by the way. There's certain things in your life that I think just stick for whatever reason. And, 7 or 8 years old, my dad had a Corvette. And he let me sit on his lap. I'm 7 years old. I sit on his lap and steer the car. I mean, we were driving down a road in Skokie. He let me steer the car. I'm pretty sure I drove it off the road, actually, into some gravel on the right side. But how cool, I mean, how cool was my dad to let me do that? Another story I remember about the Corvette, or Corvettes in general. My dad had lots of Corvettes. In 1986, he decided he's getting a new car. And so we went out car shopping. And as certain people have mentioned, my dad knew how to get a deal. I mean, when we went out to buy a car, it wasn't going to one dealership or two dealerships or 5 dealerships. It was going to as many dealerships as we can find to play one off to the next, off to the next, off to the next. And it was pretty cool, though, because, we went and we looked at Porsches, test drove a Porsche, Ferrari. We went and looked at Ferraris. And, here I am. I'm 19 years old. And really, the car was ultimately for me. I mean, I didn't necessarily realize it at the time, but it was. I mean, he hardly drove the car. It was my car. At 19 years old, I'm buying a brand new body style, Corvette. How just amazingly and amazingly cool that is, and how unselfish that was of my dad to allow that to happen. Another thing that was a big staple in our life was pinball. And since we were little kids, my dad would take us to the pinball place. We went to, I think it was Old Orchard in Skokie, and we'd get, play this pinball, and we would do flipper. We'd call it flipper. One guy would be on one flipper, and one guy would be on another flipper. And that's sort of how we learned to play pinball, and we just had a blast doing it. My dad was just a lot of fun. And the interesting thing about it is last night we went out, all of us that are up here, and we went to dinner, and then we went to GameWorks in Schaumburg. Dave & Buster's, whatever. Thank you. And we played pinball. And Bobby and I got 2 high scores on the game. Like when you get the high score, like it lets you put your initials up at the end of the, at the end of the game, and that was always a big deal. Like when we would get that with my dad, and we would always put PER, because you get 3 letters, PER for Perkins, and we put that in there, and we just, Bobby and I sort of looked at each other and said, this is Dad for sure, is here, Dad played pinball till he was well into his 80s. I mean, he and I used to take breaks from work sometimes, and we would go, like Hackney's had a pinball machine, and, there was bowling alleys that had pinball machines, and we would go and play pinball. Just a lot of great memories. Certainly lucky to have worked with him, in the music industry. I certainly learned how to be a businessman 100% from him. I graduated school as a chiropractor, as most of you know. And my mom passed away in the early 2000s, and so then I went into business. I was working as a chiropractor then. I went into business with my dad. I saw the opportunity to do that, and I took advantage of it. And couldn't have made a better move in retrospect. The last 24 years, I've gotten to see my dad every day, and along the way, I also worked in football as a chiropractor at the time, and I was a team doctor for a semi-pro team called the Kay and County Eagles, and my dad came and helped me with that. So like I was working in football and working with him, and he loved it. My dad was a huge sports fan, Bulls, Blackhawks, Bears, but honestly, the biggest one of all was the Kay and County Eagles. And, he went as far as to even leveraging relationships that he had with banks to try to sponsor the Kay and County Eagles? To try to sponsor the Kay and County Eagles, because that's how much he loved it. And, we also had season tickets to the Blackhawks when we were younger. And my cousin Steve and myself, my dad, and others went to the Hawks games. And of course, after the game, we would have to find the absolute cheapest hot dog you could possibly find after the game. It didn't matter. It could be in the absolute worst area of Chicago after the game. And, but that's where we have to go. The hot dog's $2. You can't beat the deal. If you get shot, you get shot. I mean, it's just the way it goes, Also, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how my dad was as a salesman, and I think Schlock touched on it. I mean, he could sell a drowning man a glass of water. I mean, he was just absolutely amazing, to watch. It was literally like Picasso painting, honestly. And, but I think that the thing about it was his customers were his friends. They truly were his friends. He said to me on numerous occasions that I haven't worked a day in my life. And he said that to me many times over the years. And that's because to him it wasn't work. It was fun, it was challenging, and it was literally friendship. And honestly, that's how I've sort of molded, I've tried my best to mold myself after him. We're obviously different. But, that's where I learned every business tactic per se, not tactic in a bad way, but in a good way, from him. I would say my dad was probably the best wingman, what I would call a wingman, that you could possibly have. And I don't mean necessarily, he probably was with, wingmen notoriously like building up their friend so they could get a date, with a girl sort of thing. But that's how he was in general. He was absolutely tremendous at building other people up. He was. It was just, it came natural to him. It was authentic. He would find your best qualities, and he would talk about them to them and to other people around. And one thing that he always taught me was, when it comes to friends and whatnot, he always told me, he said, you sleep with dogs, you get fleas, number one. And he said, surround yourself with experts, with people that are, the foremost in their field. And that was a good life motto. It was interesting that this morning I got a call from a good friend of mine, Leon Moody, who played for the Kay and County Eagles team that I was telling you about. And he told me, what's up? And he told me, independently, I didn't tell him any of this, and he said to me, he goes, you know what? He goes, about your dad, he goes, when I would call the house or see your dad, he goes, there were times when I was down. And he goes, and your dad didn't know that I was down. You didn't know that, me and his friend didn't know it. Nobody knew. He said, but your dad would always lift me up. And he's like, and when I would get off the phone, by the time I got off the phone with him or saw him, he's like, I just felt better. And I just thought it was prophetic. I mean, it was just amazing that he said that to me this morning, that Moody said that to me this morning, when this was already part of what I was going to talk about today. And there was a live, living example of that. Another thing that I wanted to mention, and I'll try to keep this somewhat short, I apologize, but was trust was a big, big, big deal for my dad. And it was very hard to come by with people that he trusted. And the fact that he, not just on a trust level, but on multiple levels, went beyond accepting Jennifer, my wife, into the family and truly viewed her as a daughter, an actual daughter, completely implicitly trusted her when it came to every aspect of his life, and even walked her down the aisle, because Jennifer's father unfortunately passed away when she was 19 years old. So he even walked her down the aisle at our wedding, which was quite an honor. And even, the other part of that was I had taken a hiatus from work with my dad and got involved with a professional indoor team that I worked for. And when I took that hiatus, Jennifer actually took my spot at work. She quit her job at the bank and took my spot at work and worked alongside my dad for a long time. And I think several times he said to me that, that she did a better job than me. And even though I think he was half joking, you know what, I will fully accept that she probably was. She'd be a hell of a lot more organized, that's for sure. So the thing about it is my dad was a notorious exaggerator. If he sold $5,000 worth of stuff that day, he'd tell the next customer he talked to, he sold $50,000 worth of guitars that day. And I'm sure several of you who do business with him, probably particularly Tom back there, probably know this very well. And he would say things like, I put this guy in business, I put that guy in business, He would tell me these things about how influential he was in the music industry. And while I saw it while I was working there, I never fully believed it, 100%. Like I knew it was at least partially true. But one thing I can tell you is that every call that I got, every email that I got from people after hearing of his passing, and I heard some of this while he was still alive too, they would tell me, man, your dad was a legend. And they'd use the word legend and one of a kind, and that he literally got them into business, and he said that he was the reason for their success. And I don't think it was just blowing smoke up my tailpipe. I think it was legit. So I do want to just read a few emails that I got from people. And again, I know we're running over here. Don't worry, I'm thirsty, but I'm not going to drink your water, Schlock. So this is from a guy that owns a big distributorship in Michigan. His name is Tom. He said, "Hi, Alan. So very sorry to hear about Shel. It saddens me that I have not spoken to him in the last year. I have known Shel since the day when we started here at LPD in April of 1986. It's crazy to think that he was 50 years old at that time. I remember always thinking that he sounded much younger than that. Totally true. I learned a lot from him over the years and always enjoyed his sense of humor and advice. I always admired his work ethic as well. And by the way, on a side note, nobody worked harder than him in everything that he did. He religiously did things when it came to work, when it came to running. I mean, he was up at 5:30 in the morning, or, running on a cruise ship, So We also had a very memorable cruise with Shel, Judy, and Howard Chat family many years ago. It was a great time, and I remember your dad getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go running on the ship's track. We visited several tropical islands. It was amazing, and we were able to go on the cruise thanks to Shel. I've had so many wonderful conversations with Shel over the years, talking about business or just making jokes. I also spoke with him many times for advice when I was going through my treatments for prostate cancer back in 2011. He was very helpful and comforting. Best of all was my annual happy birthday call that I received for many years. Shel and I shared our September 1st birthdays, so he would sing me happy birthday in his best Sinatra voice. I looked online, and I'm glad to see that I can see the live stream of his service. I really miss Shel, but I know I'll think about him often. Thoughts and prayers to the family. Another one. This is Tom's wife, the same guy I was just reading is his wife. Alan, I'm so heartbroken to hear the news of your father's passing. My heart breaks for you all. I know this pain all too well. He was such a small man, but he had such a big heart and big personality. Sadly, I haven't spoken to your dad in years. I deal with different areas of LPD, so our paths never crossed anymore. I have wanted to call just to say hello for years and mad at myself for not picking up the phone. Dad always said, by the way, you're going to have guilt no matter what in your life. So there's an example of guilt. My memories of your dad are always fond ones. His stories, jokes, and nicknames for all our staff. His absence will surely leave a huge void as the world needs more like Shel. He will be truly missed. I pray for your strength and healing, and sending virtual hugs from Michigan. Here's another one from a longtime customer. I became so sad when I heard the news of Shel's passing. I called Alan immediately and cried like a baby. It's totally true. This man was our first supplier and mentor when I opened up over 14 years ago. He helped us get started. That is huge to our family. He was kind and funny. He was extremely helpful. He was our friend. Our family will miss him, and we feel extremely lucky to have known him. Here's another one, longtime business guy. He said, how very sad. Your dad was a mentor for so many of us, but even more, a true friend. I always looked up to him for his love of this business and for all the people he touched along the way. Don't worry, I'm almost done. Here's a guy, I don't even know who this guy is, honestly. But I knew your dad from around 1969 when I first started doing business with WMI as their British guitar string supplier and UK partner in establishing KWMI in the UK. Spent many humorous moments with Shelley, come on, and his sidekick Mike Teichner, the Craw, by the way, that's the Craw, and kept in touch for years. He was one of the great personalities in my life, a kind and generous man, always loved and respected, now sadly missed. 3 more, I think. I'm so sorry to hear about your father's passing. This guy I don't know either, by the way. Shel was a true legend in the industry and a remarkable person. His warmth, spirit, and legacy will be remembered by all of us who were fortunate enough to know him. I mean, again, you can hear legend, one of a kind, mentor, just over and over and over again. I loved your dad. He was always so good to me. Actually, this guy's a longtime customer. Always so good to me and also got me a lot of business. He was a one of a kind, and he will be missed. Here's another guy that my dad knew for many years. My deepest sympathy goes out to you and your family. I have known your dad since 1971 and considered him a friend. We worked together for many years and became very close. I will truly miss his sense of humor, friendship, and kindness we had together for over 50 years. He will be remembered in my heart. This one is from some guys in the Boston area that we were real tight with. He said, Mark, his brother, this guy's name is Michael, and his brother's Mark. His brother's name is Mark. This is Michael. Mark just delivered the terrible but inevitable news. I'm so sorry to hear that the perfect one has met his maker and all of his friends who have taken the trip before him. It could be an absolute end of an era. Never another like him. And here's the last one. Save the best for last. This is from a woman that runs a big company in California. Shel Perkins was larger than life. He was a friend, a mentor, and one of the warmest souls I've ever had the privilege to know. Shel had that rare gift of making everyone around him feel seen, valued, and uplifted, and that may be one of the greatest gifts a person can have. When I was young, scared, and insecure in the music industry, Shel was there. His advice was priceless and changed the course of my career. I'll never forget walking into my first MDA conference, just an unknown sales girl from Saga, feeling completely out of place among giants in the industry like Harris Teller, Kaman, and Yamaha. I didn't know how to approach them or what to say, but Shel noticed my vulnerability, came over with his trademark smile, and told me not to be afraid. He explained how to talk to them, how to sell, and how to believe in myself. Somehow, he made it all feel easy. Year after year, I would run into Shel at NAMM, and every meeting was a burst of joy and laughter. He had a wonderful sense of humor. Some of his jokes I'd retell for days afterwards. Even recently, we spoke on the phone. He'd called to order products we didn't even carry, but the real gift was always the conversation. He'd start the call with his signature greeting. "Is this the most beautiful girl that works at Saga?" And just like that, he'd make my day. I loved Shel. I loved him as a friend, a mentor, and truly a good man. I'll never forget him. I know he's joined the Angels now, and I can almost hear his laughter in the wind. He's watching over us with that smile, making heaven feel even warmer. Liliana. I'll close my portion of this with Frank Sinatra. Now, this just so reminds me of my dad. And while I'm extremely sad that he's gone, he really did live a life that's full. He traveled each and every highway. And more, much more than that, he did it his way.
Okay, I guess I'll talk. Hard to follow these acts, I'll tell you. Yeah, I just wanted to share about my dad as a dad. I'll never forget, as a kid, Dad coming home with holy sweatshirts and my mom saying, "Tear that sweatshirt," and Dad would play with me and we'd tear the sweatshirt. And it was just very fun and very anything. Some of you don't know this, Alan knows it, but one of my dad's nicknames was the coolest out of schoolist. And when I was a kid, my dad hung with the Fifth Dimension, which was a big group, very popular, Gary Lewis, and some other famous folks from the Bears and other places. And boy, he was, to me, the coolest. And all those around him, boy, it was so cool to grow up. You know, you had Mr. Knowledge. You had Mr. Hate. You had Killer Krugman. I mean, how much more exciting can it get than that? Hammer and Hank. And then later on, the Schlock, the host, the MC tonight, Alligator Man, and Sebastian Coe. I mean, I was growing up with these famous people. And every time I would call my dad, I'd get a song, always. I do immigration law, so I was immigration man, you know, big spy songs, you know, and he'd improvise different lyrics, and I'd improvise back, and we always had a wonderful time. And, you know, it's funny, but this naming thing is something I've always had with my friend, King Richard, King Jordan. It's just a tradition that I guess goes on in the Perkins family. And, you know, it's interesting. I'll kind of end with this, you know, as someone that's been through some amount of therapy and looking at myself, you know, you always look at different things from your childhood. Everybody knows with psychiatry or whatever, it's your mom's fault, it's your dad's. So you always look at these traumas that affected us in life. And, you know, looking at my dad, he was a really good man. And anytime we needed him, he was there for us, cared about us, he stepped up for us, and, you know, he was a really good person, and I particularly admire his sense of compassion for people, and I will miss him terribly. Thank you.
So my name's Ananda. I'm the youngest of Shel's sons. And for those of you who haven't met me, hi. I wrote this down because I knew this was going to be hard. And, for a lot of us, when you're young, you go to a lot of weddings. And that's all happy times. And unfortunately, I've reached that stage in my life where I've been to a few of these, and this being the most important. I've regretted not speaking at some of the others, and I didn't want to make that mistake today. So, first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for being here today, and let you know my dad always told me he had a really great life. And all the people around here today, and many of you who aren't here today, are the reasons why. And Tom and Lily, I just learned Tom's name a couple of years ago. So I wanted to first start with thanking some folks. And of course, I wanted to thank my dad for the time that we had together. He was always great about calling and checking in on me. I live in Colorado and wasn't around here as much as maybe would have liked, but he would always check up on me and ask me how I was doing. And when I was here, he was a night owl, and we would have a lot of conversations in the middle of the night, when no one else was around. I wanted to thank Judy, Rude Jude, to my kids, the only Bubby. Probably the most important nickname that hasn't been brought up today was that one. Judy was always so warm and kind and wonderful to my family, and always did all the fun things that the kids could think of or wanted to do, and would always hop in the boat and go on the drive and trek and do the alligator walk and all the rest of that stuff. Judy, thank you for that. To my brothers, Bobby and Alan, thank you. And of course to Alan and Jen and Judy for what they did, even, most recently. And of course being here for the good times and these tough times that have taken place. But for what I will remember about my dad, first of all, his heroes, and you've heard some of them, Sinatra, Jordan. I don't think Matt Helm was mentioned. Judge Judy was mentioned. But my dad only really loved the best. And again, this is an homage to Judy Perkins. He only loved the best. And, you're up there with Jordan as far as I'm concerned, Judy. Judge Judy was the second, third, or fourth most important Judy to him. My dad was the ultimate practical thinker, and that certainly extended to his business. Some of the legend has been mentioned today, but my kids have learned from his example, why eat 3 meals a day when you can eat one at lunch for $3.99 at the all-you-can-eat pizza kitchen? Why buy popcorn at every movie when you can get a free refill from the tub you bought last month? Why work for somebody else when you can work for yourself and you know what to do? You can do it. And it was mentioned, just a minute ago, my dad would always say, you can't necessarily control how fast or how tall or how strong you are, but you can control how hard you work. And that's something that I think is good advice for every person, certainly every young person in this room. As it turns out, you don't have to run 1,000% to run faster than what most people are willing to put out there. And so if you try hard, you will succeed out there in the world. And that was infinitely important advice, I think, for everybody. Alan mentioned how much he loved his job, and I do believe that he never really felt like he worked a day in his life. The very last time I talked to him just last week, I think Ryan picked up the phone, and, you know, within 20 seconds, he had handed the phone to my dad. You know, I imagine he was downstairs in the, you know, war room doing what he had done his whole life. And I think that's how he wanted it to be. As a grandfather, and he's grandfather to many now, you know, my kids will remember some of the hits, the Dee Dee Dawa, the Monkey Man was brought up earlier. I think he had the Robot Man, and of course the Shel Perkins Zoo, which all the kids will remember. And then the nicknames, which of course, you know, we've talked about a lot. But I do want to thank some of those people who are here and not here. The Schlachter, for the amazing job today, and I feel so fortunate to have gotten to know so many of these people off and on through my dad. Again, to Judy for every day, to Rude Jude for every day. The King, my son, and terrific Tim, who are here with me today. Alligator Man, Billy Joel, Sweet Sue, Lily Von Lennon, Mr. Knowledge for knowing everything. I forgot Powerful, Rimp the Chimp, who none of you will understand that, but he's the one who named me. And even Killer Krugman, who I never met, but generated so many great stories for my dad, which I got to hear. And finally, you know, we're, I think, all going to mourn the fun. My dad always had the inside jokes, the outside jokes, the in-your-face jokes. Everything that could be a bit was a bit, and he lived his life, I think, to make it fun and make it fun for all of us. And I will always be forever grateful for that. So, thank you.
Schlock's going to come back up now and give us a little rendition of a song that he wrote. And as he mentioned earlier, there's been lots of songs over the years, and songs are generally, you know, obviously, you know, Weird Al. Again, it's just for people that don't know, you know, obviously, you know Weird Al Yankovic. Everybody's familiar with him. Schlock's songs are equally as brilliant, without a question, but they're designed for specific audiences. And so this was, people that know my dad will obviously completely understand where this is coming from.
By the way, before I forget this, I have to make an announcement. What about after what we eat after this? You want to do that afterwards?
Yeah, no, it's fine. Immediately following this, across the hall, there's a banquet room, and there'll be plenty of food for everybody. Please join us and eat some of this food so we don't all have to take it, me and Judy don't have to take it home.
Well, as Alan said, I usually write for just 5 people. This is the first time that I've written for many people. So did I clean it up? Yeah, I guess I did. Okay, good. I'll wait. The suspense. Huh? Oh, okay. This is a rendition, or just it's called Perfekt's Favorite Things. Okay. I wish I had Perfekt's voice when I did this. You know, I don't sing very well. Perfekt favorite things. Large snapping turtles that had their own pool. Old Blue Eyes and Dino, 2 cats who were cool. With oversized TV, he never was lost. The only thing better, he got it for cost. Winning the 5Ks with sprinters and streakers. He did it by training with 10-year-old sneakers. Laughing at Rickles just like a hyena. He'd reach for a check like it was a subpoena. Connery, Brando, Cosell, and Ali, but no one amazed like the great 23. Family and buddies, the source of Shel's joy. He'd even forgive you if you were a goy. Let's remember all the good times that will never end. We're lucky to know you. You're one of a kind. Peace and goodbye, my friend. I knew I wouldn't get through it. Okay, I guess we eat on the other side, so.
This concludes the service here in the chapel. As the Schlachter said, the family is greeting people immediately across the lobby in Chapel D, where they're having a gathering. For those of you watching online, I want to thank you for attending. I'd also like to call everybody's attention to the inside of the funeral service folder. The family has asked that memorial contributions be made to the Parkinson's Foundation. That information's on the funeral service folder you should have received. If you did not receive one, they are available as you depart today. Thank you.